To my fellow alumni and the class of 2016, it is a pleasure to be here with all of you this morning. As I was reflecting on my Fordham prep experience and its influence on my life, and what I could share from that, I found myself constantly going back to two particular moments from my senior year. One of these moments occurred in the fourth quarter of Father William O'Malley's class, The Problem of God, Morality, Marriage, and Fatherhood. When we were asked to write an autobiography, which would detail our past, our present, and our hopes and dreams for the future. In that paper, I carefully thought it out and created what I felt was the perfect future for me. My grand plan was to go to a Jesuit college or university, come back to Fordham Prep and teach English, earn a master's degree in English from Fordham University, marry my high school sweetheart, get a beautiful house in New Rochelle, and eventually become principal of Fordham Prep and live happily ever after. Sweet life, huh? As I look back, I wrote that grand plan out of a place of love for my alma mater, aspirations given to me by certain role models of the prep, and a loyalty to what I had at that time in my life. However, looking back, I find that I limited myself to the comfortability and familiarity of what I had experienced up to that point in my young life. I wasn't truly open to the possibility that God had other plans for me, nor did I feel the urge to entertain other ways of utilizing my Jesuit education from the prep in the world. After hearing Father Deveron's introduction of me, I'm sure you've deduced by now that my grand plan didn't quite happen. However, my life journey since graduation from Fordham Prep has been no less of an unpredictable adventure. After graduating from the prep, I continued my Jesuit education at Lemoyne College in Syracuse, New York, where I studied English just as I had planned. Despite having wonderful professors who demonstrated the beauty and splendor of literature and language, to my surprise, I found that I had more joy in my religious studies classes and getting involved in campus ministry, just as I had done at the prep. Instead of joining the literary magazine or the newspaper like I envisioned, I found myself spending many hours doing community service, going on retreats, and deepening my understanding and knowledge of Ignatian spirituality. Though I stayed with my major, I became the first Catholic Studies minor in school history, and I also took many education courses. The seeds of Jesuit education planted at the prep started to blossom within the first couple of years at Lemoyne for me. By the time I was a junior, I started realizing that becoming an English teacher was no longer what I wanted. Instead of studying abroad like many of my classmates, I decided to take a semester away from my classes and figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I had wanted to explore the career of high school campus ministry, particularly within an all-male environment like that of the prep. So on New Year's Day 2007, I packed up all my stuff from my dorm and moved into an unfurnished apartment in Rochester, New York, where I worked as free labor for McQuaid Jesuit High School, interning in the campus ministry office. Throughout my 6 months in McQuaid, I began to learn what it takes to uphold a strong program of retreats, service, and liturgies, while also being available to young men who sought guidance, direction, and wisdom. I was challenged with tough lessons on self-care as I developed a viral infection within my first 2 months in Rochester, as well as learning the ins and outs of time management, learning to see the viewpoints different than my own, and understanding the selflessness needed to be a true man for others, for those who look to my example. Despite that, I fell in love with my opportunity at McQuaid, as I was welcomed with open arms by the school community, and I had a blast getting to know the students, parents, teachers, staff, and Jesuits, many of whom I still keep in touch with today. My experience in Rochester set my heart on fire with a calling to work with young men in their development of faith and self-identity, all within the Jesuit tradition of campus ministry. I knew at this point, more than ever, that my grand plan that I wrote Father O'Malley's class was not going to go the way I had intended. However, I still felt that if I stayed with what I knew up to this point, I would still return to Fordham Prep and all would work out. Well, I did stay with what I knew up to that point, and guess what? It didn't work out the way I planned. After I graduated from Lemoyne in 2008, I returned to Rose Hill and attended Fordham University's Graduate School of Religion and Religious Education on a full scholarship to study ministry and adolescent male development. When I started my graduate studies, all I could think of was that if I took the right steps and worked hard enough, I could come back to the prep and continue on a slightly altered path from what I originally had and follow it to my dreams. Part of this effort included serving the prep as an alumni volunteer in the Religious Studies Department, campus ministry, the alumni office, and continuing to work with Mrs. Wanda Pinero in the Fordham Prep Summer Academy, something I had started while I was in college during the summer breaks. Additionally, I worked 2 part-time jobs at the university and served as an RA in Loschert Hall, the dorm directly across from the prep, so I lived right across the street from the prep. That was pretty cool. Not at all. I believe that hard work and perseverance is all that you needed to achieve your dreams. However, as most of you seniors will learn, you can make all the plans in the world, but ultimately, God will have other ideas. While at the university, I was blessed to have studied with people from all walks of life. Priests, nuns, brothers, lay people from all different nationalities, ethnicities, stages of life, religious backgrounds, and experiences. I met so many people who shared their own unique stories of how they met God in the living world and inspired them to do ministry. Many of these people had never even met a Jesuit before coming to Fordham University at their time of their studies. Before this, I had always believed that it was the Jesuit way or the highway. But this experience of formal and personal education opened my eyes to see that the church was not just enriched by one spiritual approach, but rather the church is a diversity of beautiful charisms and ways of finding God. For the first time, I started to wonder if I should try and seek another form of Catholic spirituality outside of what I've always known. While all this was going on, my girlfriend, whom I had dated for 7 years, from the time I was a junior at the prep, up until the last semester of graduate school, decided to break up with me. If there was anything in my grand plan that I didn't see changing, it was this. After all, we were supposed to get married and live in New Rochelle. Come on! But in all seriousness, up to this point, it was probably the most disappointing and heartbreaking thing I had experienced since leaving the prep. This sobering experience made me realize that we can make grand plans all we want. But in the end, plans are just that. They're plans. They're not what's written in stone for you to do. They're what you perceive as the right path for you to follow. However, as I'm sure all of us in this room can attest, sometimes what we plan to do may not be what actually happens. After much soul searching and reflection, I realized that life is about finding yourself, not life finding you. Upon graduating from Fordham University with my master's degree, I decided to take a leap of faith and explore another kind of Catholic spirituality. I made a very conscious and serious decision to spend the next year of my life as a full-time live-in volunteer for Capuchin Youth and Family Ministries in Garrison, New York. Many of you in this room know that this place is the retreat center where our beloved Emmaus retreat happens. Emmaus 150, yeah, I know that was a while ago, was the time when I felt my faith truly took form, and I fell in love with retreats at the prep. It seemed only fitting that this was the place where I could continue a new chapter of spiritual searching. Run by the Capuchin Franciscans, I learned about a new perspective of faith, church, and ministry. During my year at CYFM, I lived in community with 6 other people my age, and we worked together doing retreats, parish youth ministry, and service trips all over the Northeast. I did over 200 retreats that year. I often joke with my prep classmates that I was on the Emmaus that never ends. During my volunteer year, I worked with teenagers from all different backgrounds, from the South Bronx to the Hudson Valley, all the way over to Central Connecticut. Sharing this powerful experience with 6 other people, day in and day out, I learned a lot about humility, understanding that I don't know everything, and sometimes I need to turn to others for help, even when I don't want to. I learned a lot about simplicity, making community meals on a budget, and learning to have fun without a lot of money. And I learned a lot about compassion, loving others when I felt like I can't even like them after a really difficult argument or disagreeing about little things like sports or laundry. The Capuchins themselves modeled to me a sense of allowing yourself to listen to God in the smallest whispers of life and to give of yourself so that others can hear God whispering through you. This year was simply life-changing. I felt that it was monumental and that I began to understand that we discover who we are not by limiting ourselves to our comfort zones, but by taking chances on seeing what's out in the world waiting for you. After I left Garrison, I moved to Washington, D.C., and I began a job in the campus ministry department at Gonzaga College High School, an all-boys Jesuit institution located in the heart of the nation's capital. When this opportunity presented itself, I quickly jumped for it. Gonzaga was very similar to Fordham Prep in a variety of ways, from the size to the student culture of brotherhood or service, to stellar athletics, to a rich history of academic excellence. I was no longer married to the idea that I had to go back to Fordham Prep to be content and live happily ever after in my career. But I still wanted to go someplace that was as close to Fordham Prep as possible. However, I quickly found that it simply wasn't a good fit for me. Though Gonzaga students remind me so much of my own classmates at Fordham, and I had a blast leading retreats, doing service, and coaching lacrosse for freshmen, I realized that I had compared Gonzaga to Fordham Prep so much that it could no longer live up to my standards. Instead of having an open heart and mind, I was struggling to shake off this ideal of how things should be. I sound pretty stubborn, don't I? Additionally, the part of me that first wanted to be a teacher was starting to come through again. Unfortunately, there was no opportunity for me to teach at Gonzaga while doing campus ministry. At the end of my second year at Gonzaga, I felt that I was being called somewhere else to serve and start fresh. I began to think that after everything I've experienced since leaving Fordham Prep, the most enriching parts of my life came when I was brought out of my comfort zones and my grand plan. With that in mind, I decided to explore other opportunities that would challenge me in healthy ways to grow as a person and allow me to take the valuable lessons from Fordham Prep and everywhere else I've been and put them for the betterment of others. Ultimately, I found myself with an offer to be a campus minister and religious studies teacher at St. John's Prep in Danvers, Massachusetts. Though St. John's is a Catholic all-boys school, just like Fordham Prep, it's also a very different place. With grades 6 through 12, 1,500 students, and a 175-acre suburban campus on the North Shore of Boston, it is much bigger and has the dynamic of a New England prep school. Additionally, the school is run by another religious order I had no previous connection to, the Zavarian Brothers. To be quite frank, I never envisioned myself going to a place like St. John's, but at this point in my life, that made it all the more appealing. I decided to take a chance and fully give myself over to where I felt God was directing me. Now, at the end of my third year at St. John's, I'm glad I did. The challenge of learning a new educational tradition and way of life has been pleasantly refreshing and enlightening. At the same time, it affirms what has been cemented in my soul from Jesuit education and spirituality, that striving for the magis, the more, is the first step of serving the greater glory of God, wherever you find yourself in this great wide world. Not long after moving to Massachusetts, I met the love of my life. There is no better feeling in the world than knowing you found the one who enlivens your spirit and makes you a better person than you could have ever imagined. For that alone, I'm glad I took a chance on moving to yet another place for a job that was different than what I had ever known or planned for myself. What the future holds for me from this point on, only the good Lord knows. But no matter what obstacles or opportunities that come my way, I will embrace the future in the same way I have embraced what I learned at Fordham Prep. You may have forgotten that I mentioned this earlier, but I had one other moment from my senior year that always comes to mind. It was during Jesuit Heritage Week 2004 when Father Tom Benz distributed these little wallet-sized cards that listed the grad, a set of characteristics of a graduate of a Jesuit high school should possess: open to growth, intellectually competent, religious, loving, and committed to justice. At the bottom of the card, it asks the essential question: how are you doing on these? 12 years later, I still carry this card in my wallet to remind myself of where I came from and the values I try to live with intentionality to uphold each and every day. Though I've always been committed to living out the grad, it can sometimes be easy to forget or even misunderstand these values. No matter where you go to college, what degree you achieve, what career you pursue, who you marry, how many children you have, I hope all of you in this room take what you've learned from Fordham Prep and put it into action. I hope each and every day that every one of you is committed to justice, defending the poor, the marginalized, and the abused, while empowering others to lift up those around them to make this world a better place for all of us. I hope each and every one of you is loving, treating others with kindness, respect, and compassion, no matter how different they may be from you. As a son, a brother, a friend, a husband, a father, a grandfather, and a human being, be a beacon of light in the world that can sometimes be filled with darkness. I hope each and every one of you is religious, fostering your own unique relationship with God that brings you peace, insight, and direction throughout the journey of life, while also demonstrating what it means to follow the example of Christ among others. I hope each and every one of you is intellectually competent, embracing the love of learning and knowledge that will enable you to be the best at whatever it is you're called to be and serve God and society. Most importantly, I hope each and every one of you is open to growth, taking what you've learned and honed at Fordham Prep and using it as a foundation for further experiences to build upon and complete the man you were born to be. For you see, Fordham Prep is the place it is because of its graduates. For 175 years, thousands of young men have come from the same place as you and showed the world what a Fordham Prep education is all about. Our graduates range from doctors to teachers to lawyers to policemen to businessmen to firefighters to engineers to even a cardinal. This is a school of servant leaders, and many people talk of their wonderful encounters with Prep alumni all over the country and all over the world. The Prep's reputation has been built by its graduates. Many alumni have said that they owe their entire success to the Prep. However, I don't think they realize that the Prep owes their success to them. President John F. Kennedy once famously said, "Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country." Today, I encourage you to ask not what Fordham Prep can do for you, but ask what you can do for Fordham Prep. Gentlemen, we are a community of love, compassion, and brotherhood. We are scholars who live out our knowledge. We are ones to set the world on fire with hope, courage, and justice. We are part of something greater than ourselves. We are Fordham Prep. Thank you.